What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from the quarantine zone again, and this time we got Tom Angelripper of the almighty Sodom. Thank you so much for your time today, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for calling me.
Yep, it's so awesome to have you here. We have the brand new album, Genesis XiX, coming out this November. Is this just a continuation of what we heard off of Decision Day, or is this like almost a new start for the Sodom catalog?
It's a completely new lineup. You know, we have Frank Blackfire back on the guitars and a second guitarist called York. We also have a new drummer, Tony. It's a completely new lineup. It's a completely new album. You know, this has nothing to do with Decision Day. I think the new album is more, it's more a typical Sodom album than Decision Day. And I don't know. I don't want to compare the albums, you know, but if you have a new guitarist in a band, it sounds different, definitely.
Yeah, I feel like so you've always like taken a new approach to every single album anyway, right? It's not like you have like a formula that you tried to stick with in your career.
Yeah, you know, this album was not planned this year. You know, I have to tell you that when I changed the lineup, you know, I get a new drummer in the beginning of this year. We gotta start rehearsing for the next upcoming shows and doing the set list and all the stuff, you know. But you know, all the shows get cancelled and postponed to next year. So we spend more time writing the songs, you know. And it's the only positive in this Corona crisis. So we get the album finished, and the record company told me that they want to bring it out this year, you know. So we could work it out without any pressure, and we had a lot of time to do it in a perfect way, you know. We've been in a professional studio mixing the album, you know. So we could fix everything in the best time, you know.
Yeah, has the time of unrest and all this time of uncertainty maybe influenced the album in a way? Maybe added some extra energy and a little bit of anger into this sound as well?
We always try to do, you know. You know, you have to realize that we have two guitarists, and both guitars are able to write songs, you know. And if you listen to the album, you will see that there are some difference between a couple of songs, you know. There are songs which Frank Blackfire, you know, sometimes he came up with guitarists that could be on Agent Orange or Persecution Mania, which I really like, you know. And he's more melodic, because Frank is also more interested in guitarists like Rory Gallagher and Frank Marino and all this stuff, you know. And York came up with more heavier riffs because he's a black metal fan, death metal fan, you know. He liked crust punk bands, you know. And there is a big difference between the songwriters. But in the end, if you put songs from both guitarists on the album, that makes the album so colorful, you know. And it doesn't matter if you have more melodic or more aggression into the songs, you know. When I do the vocals in the end and do my bass guitar over it, and it has to sound like Sodom, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there were a couple of songs which are the really heaviest songs we ever wrote, definitely, yeah.
Yeah, so it's fair to say that the first single that you released off of this album, Sodom and Gomorrah, like, do you think that that's not a clear representation of what the whole album is going to sound like, right? That's just the first taste.
Yeah, I think this song represents the whole career of Sodom, you know. I think when you look back to the 80s, you know, the bands, they arranged the songs in a different way, like the bands nowadays do, you know. And we are always interested we are big metal fans from the 80s, you know. And when we start writing this song, you know, we listen to bands from the 80s, you know. And I think Sodom and Gomorrah, this song represents everything we did in the past, you know. But you also have completely other songs which are completely different to Sodom and Gomorrah, like the Harpooner or Genesis XiX. There are more slower songs and longer songs in it, you know. But when we start writing a song, we never think about what we're gonna do, you know. We never look left or right, you know. We just start writing songs, you know, without any influence from outside.
Yeah. Well, like when you look at the entirety of the Sodom catalog having so many albums, like when you look at, your self-titled album versus like Agent Orange or Better Off Dead to even Obsessed by Cruelty, the first album, like, is it almost like a representation of who you are at that time? Like, is it almost kind of like a self-portrait, you would say?
Yeah, I think there's always we always did this album for the right time. When we I remember a couple of months ago when we start the set list for the upcoming shows. We talk about doing more songs from the 80s. And so we start rehearsing a couple of songs from Obsessed by Cruelty album, and also from the first demo tapes. Because Sodom is a band who never forget where we come from. We come from '82. And we get our first success in '84, '85.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that we have a lot of fans, for example, in Scandinavia, who really enjoy Obsessed by Cruelty stuff and all the older material. And I think sort of had a big influence to the black metal scene also.
Definitely.
So we are always interested in changing the set list, doing more rarities in it, and doing more Obsessed by Cruelty stuff.
Yeah. And
But listening to this album is really funny sometimes because we didn't know what we did. It's really hard to realize what we've done in this time.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that there was no preconceived idea for what Genesis 19 is supposed to sound like, right? It was just like rolling with the punches, and it happened very, very organically.
Yes, I think also the sound is different to Decision Day. You have to know that we recorded all the stuff, the drums and the guitars with microphones, recorded to the computer, and then we went to a professional studio, which is a Woodhouse studio, and Ziggy Ben is a producer in the studio. And that was really interesting to bring all the digital files back to an analog mixing desk, And I think that was a really special effect, And that was like in the 80s, the Ziggy was sitting on the desk mixing, and we were sitting behind him drinking beers, That was really funny to do,
Mm.
And I think recording in the studio like this, there's a special effect, I like the productions from the 80s. If you listen to Kiss, for example, or Venom or Mötley Crüe, they always have a big drum sound, which I enjoy so much,
Yeah,
the most bands recording everything with plug-ins and samplers, and which I don't like,
Yeah, well, being both a bass player and a singer, I think you're able to both think from a very rhythmic standpoint. So I think I've always noticed at Sodom, I love the sound of your intense drum work and the sound of I feel like the music is very rhythm oriented. So I'd imagine that just happens subconsciously being a bassist as well, right?
Yes, I think I work together with my drummer, and I'm not saying that I'm a classic bassist, I was inspired by Kronos. I think Kronos is a great bass player and singer, and also LG Ward from Tank, But it's really interesting when I talk to my drummer, he's a perfect drummer, and he's also able to do blast beats, He's always very good in timing, And he told me that he's really interested in Chris Witchhunter's drumming, and he tried to keep Witchhunter's spirit and bring it into the new songs, but more technical perfect, And that is what you're gonna listen on a new album, The drumming is perfect, And Tony, in my opinion, he's the best drummer we can find here in Germany.
Yeah. One thing I've always wanted to ask you is going by Tom Angelripper, which I think is one of the most metal names ever. I just love that term. Do you feel like that in a way over the years have come that's just become your identity? Do you feel have you always in a way felt like you were portraying a character in Sodom, or has this just become part of your identity at this point?
Yeah, I think Tom Angelripper it's a trademark, and I did some music for nearly 40 years, and I know that I am a cult musician nowadays, and it's really interesting because there's a new generation of metal fans growing up, and these people are really interested in historical bands from the beginning. I remember the last show we did. There was a metal fan. He was 14 years old and wearing the patches from Hellhammer and Tank and Motorhead and Sodom on the West. And he told me that he really liked old school metal bands. But I never mind. I'm just a singer in a band. It's Sodom is my band, but I was growing up with this band.
Mm-hmm.
And I formed the band in the beginning with Witch Hunter. So this it's the biggest part of my life.
Definitely. Have you always needed the music to come up with the lyrics as well, or has there ever been a time where maybe you had a concept or a story in mind, and maybe that could help influence the sound of Sodom as well?
I think when we start writing the song, we started with a jam session, and guitarists came up with guitar riffs. Sometimes I wrote the lyrics before we start the songs. And if I have some first lyrics, I send it to the guitarists, and they are able to write guitar riffs on my lyrics. But the most times, we got the music first, and then I start writing the lyrics.
Yeah.
And but there is no special way. It's always different. But what we're gonna do is we arrange everything in our room. Which is really important. I think during the Corona lockdown, we met 3 or 4 times a week and start writing the songs. I know that other bands just doing MP3 trading, and putting the songs together. That is not the way we're gonna write songs. We gotta do it all of the time in the old school way, drinking a beer and starting a session. That is the best way for us to write the songs.
Yeah, that's why I've always considered Sodom to actually be one of the most indestructible bands, because you've always stayed true to your roots. I think that people who have been enjoying you since 1981 are still appreciating you now in 2020, and I think that's because you've always stayed true to who you are. It wasn't like you changed your sound depending on the times that you were involved with. You never had to adjust this. It just seemed like your songwriting always remained the same, and we would always get the Sodom that the fans knew and loved.
Yes, that's very important. Sodom is the only band worldwide who never really changed. We're gonna write better songs. We try to get better musicians. I remember back to the 90s. Where all the metal bands get more melodic and try to get more commercial because of the record selling was going down. Was very less. And record companies try to dictate the bands what they're gonna do. And if you realize that the most of metal bands getting commercial, change their music completely. We never. When we in the 90s, we had the heaviest albums out. Was Tapping the Veil or Get What You Deserve, Masquerade in Blood. We always want to do the music we like to do. That's if we do thrash metal. Thrash metal means do what you want. There is no dictation from outside. And I know exactly when we're gonna bring an album out, what the fans expect from the next album, and that is very important, But in the first line, we just write the music because we are metal fans,
Definitely.
And when the fans like it, it's perfect, And the new album, the pre-selling is very good, and people are waiting for the new album.
Yeah. I think you guys always manage to keep it interesting. I don't consider, kind of what we talked about in the beginning of this, I don't consider every new Sodom album to just be a continuation of the last album or the album before that. I consider just every Sodom album to be a continuation of your evolution while staying true to your roots.
Yeah, every album is completely different, but it's Sodom,
Yeah.
If you have new guitarists in a band, new drummer, you change them. They have different styles to write the songs or guitar sound, So every album, we don't want to make a copy. I always talk to Frank Blackfire, we don't want to make a copy of Agent Orange,
Yeah.
By the way, Agent Orange is not my favorite album. It was the best-selling album in these times, and our most favorite album. But we never want to make a copy. It's impossible to do it,
Yeah.
But Frank came up sometimes. The songs sounds like Persecution Mania or Agent Orange riffs, Why not, But we have to do a different arrangement to to make a new song out of it, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know. We have a couple of new songs, you know, which are not on the new album, you know. And these songs are getting. I think the songs getting more and more heavier, you know.
Wow.
The longer we make the music with the new lineup, you know, when we went to studio, we had 16 songs before written, you know, and we just have to choose 12 for the album because it's about 55 minutes, you know.
Yeah.
So we have a couple of songs left, and we always get better and heavier, you know.
And that's awesome because most of the time it's the opposite. And like, you know, being that you've been a band for so long as well, you know, the world around you has changed so much. And I've always had this discussion with artists, whether you realize it or not, the world is always going to influence you one way or another. Has the changes that you've seen over the years maybe also influenced your craft in a way? Or does it still feel like you're in a way in the 80s?
Yeah, the music business changed, you know, really. It's really hard, you know, because I manage the band also, you know, and I think the problem is that so many bands coming up every month, you know. If I'm gonna buy a new magazine, you know, there are hundreds of bands coming out every month, you know. The scene, the metal scene, is getting out of control, in my opinion, you know. But Sodom is a band everybody knows. Sodom is a cult band, so we have. I know we have our fans, you know. If I know there are a lot of young bands who we never will have a chance to get in the scene, you know. And but you know, the whole world changed, you know. That is also a theme in my lyrics for the new album, you know, because in my opinion, everything is getting out of control, you know.
Yeah.
And it's a shame, you know, the Corona crisis. Nobody gonna help us, you know. But it's another thing, you know. But I think everything changed here in Germany, in Europe, and in the world, you know.
Yeah.
And that's what, you know. I cannot change anything, but I can write it down, or I can scream it out when I be on stage next time, you know.
Yeah.
So I think I'm really thinking about what happened to the next generation in the next 20, 30 years, you know, in this world, you know.
Yeah.
And also the music scene changed, you know, and the Corona crisis in this times, you know, nobody gonna help musicians or artists, you know, actors, whatever, you know. It's really a bad situation. It's a shame, you know.
Well, I think this year is going to be a testament to how strong metal is, because metal has gone through some of the worst tragedies in history, from, you know, what happened in Paris to, you know, what happened to Dime, may he rest in peace, to, you know, so many times of turmoil. But metal always carries on. And I think that's really what, when I analyze the entirety of the Sodom catalog, I think that's what really your music, I've interpreted your music to represent, just to push on through and keep on going and don't surrender. And if anything, come back stronger. And that's what I think, being every album has gotten heavier, it just seems like you come back stronger every time.
Yeah, yes, we never surrender, you know. I think the next album, you know, the harder the times are here in Europe, you know, the heavier get my music, you know. You know, if you listen to the new album, there are a couple of really brutal songs like Friendly Fire, Dehumanized, Indoctrination, you know. And I like to do it as heavy as possible, you know. And as long as I stay creative and healthy, I'm gonna do it, you know. And I think heavy metal is a really strong part in the music scene, you know. If you do other music directions, they come and go, but heavy metal will always be a big part in the music scene, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm looking really forward for the next years, you know.
Yeah, and I think what is also great about metal is that you could, every person who I've met in heavy metal, whether it's a musician, an artist, somebody who works in the industry, somebody at the label or whatever, they're all in this business for one reason, and that's because they love the music. They know what the pitfalls are going to be already. They know what obstacles are going to have to face, but they're willing to face them just because the music empowers them to keep on pushing forward, which is what I think a lot of your fans have interpreted your music as well.
Yeah, because they know we are metal fans. You know, we are no rock stars. You know, we are just metal fans being on stage for a while. You know, that's the only difference. You know, and that's what the fans like so much. You know, when they go to a Sodom show, you know, yeah, they always get the chance for a meet and greet session, signing session, whatever. I always try to find time, you know, after the show, going down to the people, talk a little bit, drinking beer, whatever, you know. We are no big rock stars. We don't want to be, you know. We just want to be metal fans making music for a while, you know?
Yeah.
And that's what the fans appreciate so much going to the Sodom show, and that's why we keep the fans, you know. I know bands or musicians, you know, that play the last note and going back to the hotels and don't care about the people who are going to pay the price, you know. I know that the people pay the price for the tickets and for the albums, you know. They keep the band alive, you know. And this is something I will never forget, you know.
Yeah, I've had a couple of friends who saw you on 70,000 Tons of Metal, and they said you guys were the best partiers on that entire boat.
Oh yes, well, I know there are big rock stars, you know. You never see them on board, you know. They just leave after the show. We go down, you know, and stay for a while, you know. That's what the people want, you know. That's it's not only the 1 hour on the stage, you know. It's everything around, you know, which I like so much, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to take care of ourselves. We don't drink so much, you know, on our boat, you know. But we'll be there, you know. We talk to the fans, and that's the thing, you know. That's why the fans go to the 70,000 Tons of Metal, because they hope to meet their musicians and the bands, you know.
Yeah. And the final question I wanted to ask you is that, you know, we've talked about, you know, your fans and stuff like that, and a lot of bands have been influenced by what Sodom has created, whether it's, you know, your fellow Thrasher family in Germany, whether it's Destruction or Accept or Creator, but then you have bands like Cannibal Corpse or Morbid Angel taking inspiration from you, Mayhem is taking inspiration from you. Has that at all maybe influenced you in a way, or has an interaction with certain fans also influenced you as an artist?
I know that bands like Sodom and Creator have big influence to other bands, you know. What I told before, there was a big the metal scene in Scandinavia, you know. Sodom was a big influence, and also, but you know, my influence was Venom, you know. I think Venom was the first one who started all the music, you know. But it makes me proud, you know, that we are still a part of an international metal scene, you know, and I know that younger bands try to do the same music, you know. I have contact to younger bands who want to do the same music like Sodom or Creator, you know, but you can't, you know. I always can talk to the younger bands, please try to create something new, you know. You cannot copy Sodom, you know. You cannot be a copy of Creator, you know. That's really hard to do, you know. When we started in the 80s, you know, there was just a handful of bands did this kind of music, you know, but nowadays there are hundreds of bands, you know.
Yeah.
But, you know, I'm still proud that we did it, and we're still here after so many years or decades, you know. That makes me proud, you know.
Yeah, and it's great, and it's always good to be inspired, but there is such a thing as being too inspired. I think you guys were taking inspiration from Venom, but I think you have your own identity. I don't consider you guys copy and pastes of Cronus or Abaddon, and I think that, you know, many fans, I think, we should, you know, people can learn. It's one thing to be inspired, but don't copy another band. I don't want to be like, let me guess what your favorite band is, the band you sound exactly alike.
Yeah, we were a band from the 80s, you know. You cannot repeat the 80s, you know. So it's good when you have an old band, you know, but create something new. Don't copy, you know. I was inspired, yeah, Cronus was my inspiration, but we created a completely different music in the end, you know. So what we called Witching Metal in the beginning, in the 82, when we got the first demo tapes out, you know. Yeah, it's really hard for a young band, you know. Newcomer bands, really hard to get into this business nowadays, you know. But I'm gonna help if I can. I'm gonna help them all, you know.
Thank you, and we appreciate that. So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time today. Really enjoyed this discussion. Is there just anything with Sodom that you would like to promote? Obviously, when all this bullshit is over with this pandemic, we'll be seeing you on the road quite a bit, right? Can you please return to the States sometime soon?
I hope so. That is always a problem, you know. People ask me why you don't never come to the States, you know. And I know other U.S. American bands are touring in Europe and Germany so many times, you know. And the thing is, we have to find a serious promoter, you know, who's gonna help us over, you know. And this promoter has to do his job, you know. There is also a lot of paperwork to do, with all the visas and permission working license and all the stuff, And we need somebody who do it seriously, and we go,
Yeah.
Our bags are packed, I want to go back to U.S. America. We have so many fans. It's a shame that we never get a real good chance for a tour or maybe a couple of shows over there,
Yeah.
But if we get this crisis, if it's over, we will check something out, definitely.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much, Tom. Everybody, we are here with Tom Angelripper of the Almighty Sodom, Genesis 19, coming out this November. Be sure to pick it up then. This is Alex from Heavy New York, and we will see you next time.